Amen. That's not my testimony. Y'all put your hand down before my wife see y'all. She's going to be asking me to put it up today. But I am excited for this season as well. It's just a great time in the life of the church. And here's the last thing I'm going to say. For all my people who just want to know how I'm feeling about this season, I'm a little offended. I'm going to say this before I jump into my sermon. I'm a little offended. Pitts, I'm a little offended. Let me tell you why I'm offended. Nobody bought me a pie today. Nobody bought me a pie. I'm a little offended. I think pastors and pies go together. I just was waiting on somebody to say, Pastor, I bought you a pie. I thought about you. I'm just being transparent about where I'm at emotionally today, okay? I'm a little sensitive. I just wanted to be open about it. It's okay, though. I forgive y'all, okay? I pray that everybody continues to stay positive throughout this season, and I'm really excited. And we've been in this series called Let There Be Life. Let There Be Life. Discovering the power of generous living. Discovering the power of generous living. And this sermon series, I want to be very honest, was inspired by a very popular pastor of Gateway Church by the name of Robert Morris. He preaches a series called The Blessed Life, but there are variations and some different things. But when I encountered his teaching, I was prompted to really evaluate my personal life and how I was honoring God with my generosity. And so it's in this series that we've been stretching ourselves and challenging ourselves to think about this concept of, could it be that there is a version of life that we have not tapped into yet because we have not lived at the level of generosity that God desires for us. So let's jump into the Word of God. We're going to go to the book of Mark, chapter 6. I want to read a good amount of verses today, but I think they will be to our benefit. Mark chapter 6. Verses 30 through 44, I'm in the NIV version, and it says this: the apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all they had done and taught. Then, because so many people were coming and going that they did not have enough chance to eat, he said to them, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place to get some rest." So they recognized them and ran on foot from all the towns and got there ahead of them. I love the fact that the people ran, Jesus and them took a boat, and the people got there first. You got to be excited to meet somebody on foot. It says they got there ahead of them. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he began teaching them many things. By this time it was late in the day. So his disciples came to him saying, "This is a remote place, and it's already very late. Send the people away so they can go to the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat." But he answered, "You give them something to eat." They said to him, "That would take more than a half a year's wages. Are we to go and spend that much on bread and give it to them to eat?" "How many loaves do you have?" he asked. "Go and see." When they found out, they said, 5 and 2 fish. Then Jesus directed them, have all the people sit in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups of hundreds and fifties. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to his disciples to distribute to the people. He also divided the 2 fish among them all. I want to skip down a little bit. And the disciples picked up, somebody say picked up, 12 basketfuls of broken pieces of bread and fish. The number of men who had eaten was 5,000. God, it is my prayer that in this moment they not hear my voice or see my face, but only hear and see the voice and face of you. In this season of Thanksgiving, allow us, Lord God, to always be prompted to be generous people. So in Jesus' name we pray. We say amen, amen, and amen. Want to talk from this 4th installment of this sermon series, Let There Be Life, Discovering the Power of Generous Living. And I want to tackle this topic today. This topic, it's in your hands. It's in your hands. I'm feeling real Baptist today. I'm feeling real Pentecostal today, Miss Wilder. So I'm going to need y'all to talk back to me, and I'm going to need y'all to talk to each other. You might high-five your neighbor 3 times in this sermon today. 1, because I'm going to ask you to. 2, because prayerfully it'll get good to you. But I need you to join me in this sermon today. Announce my sermon title to your neighbor. It's in your hands. It's in your hands. It's in your hands. It's in your hands. Some of y'all ain't talking to nobody. I'm going to pray for your spirit. No, sing your hands, sing your hands, sing your hands. Here it is, here it is. I began to think about this sermon, and I wanted to kind of recap for just a moment what we've been talking about throughout this whole series. We in each part of these sermon, select sermons or installments, we've been kind of really dealing with some big ideas. The first big idea we kind of addressed was start with the heart. That was our first sermon. We dealt with this idea that you cannot really increase your generosity as a person if you don't first address your heart. That generosity is not first a mind issue, it's a heart issue. Some of us can testify to the fact that we've done some crazy things that were not logical, that were not rational, that we would have never done if we were in our right mind, but when we were emotional, when our heart was connected to some stuff, we did some stuff that didn't make sense to the world around us. Y'all not gonna say amen? It's cool. But I know that our heart being changed impacts our generosity. Then in week 2, we dealt with this concept of kind of more than miracles. We dealt with this idea that many times because we have a miracle-based theology, we live off of miracles, but God really prompts us to know that there are more than miracles. There are also principles that you can live by. Stewardship is a principle. The way you manage your money, the way you manage your time, the way you manage your relationships, the way you manage your energy. Sometimes we talked about in that week, you don't need God to do a miracle if you're never in danger. Come on here. You don't need somebody to rescue you if you live in a way where you don't put yourself in a need of rescue all the time. So we talk about living off of more than miracles, and we address this mammon mentality, this idea of money as a worship or a god in our lives, an idol in our lives. And then we're going to be dealing with this a little bit, being more than a consumer, but being a contributor. We live in a very consumer-based culture. We live in a culture where it's been Black Friday, Cyber Saturday, Cyber Monday, or Saturday, Small Business Saturday. We love to be consumers. And there's nothing wrong with consuming within a stewardship life. Within a well-stewarded life, there's nothing wrong with consuming. It's just we have to steward well what we have. We're going to talk about that in a second. And then we talk about we don't give to get, we give to live. That there is a life for those of us who are generous. There is a life that God promises us, a type of life, a type of joy, a type of peace, a type of fulfillment that is found when we live generously. I just want to deal with those 4 right now. We're going to talk about level 5 or number 5 and later on. But I want to go back to number 3 for a moment. This idea of being more than a consumer, being a contributor. I just don't know if there's been anybody like me when I was a kid. Now, everybody, I wasn't bad. I just had challenges. Somebody say challenges. Yeah, some of y'all can testify too that you weren't bad. We don't proclaim that over your life. You just, were challenged. And I recall something that me and my friends used to do in high school. Don't judge me. Tap your neighbor on the leg and say, don't judge him. I remember in high school, we would do some things because we didn't have a lot of money. So a couple times we went to a restaurant, just a couple times we went to a restaurant and we didn't have no money when we showed up. We went to the restaurant with no money. Y'all gonna catch it in a minute. And we ordered with no money. And we ate with no money. And then we ran. Nobody's ever done that before? Only 2 people in the room. 1. Thank you, Regina, for being honest in the house. Thank you. Yeah, everybody want to pop up now. All of a sudden. Let's say 1 person in. Me too. Yeah, I did. I got to be honest with you. I got to be honest. I consumed and didn't contribute. I consumed, but Jay, I didn't make a contribution to the establishment. And I did this at 14 and 15 years old. I'm not a regular pattern of my life, but it was something that I did. I gotta be honest, I did it. And I just think about that. Can I be very, very real today? A lot of us are really good at doing this spiritually as well. We are amazing consumers and average contributors. We come to church to hear about how God will do something for us because we are amazing consumers. But we can be mediocre contributors to what God wants to do in somebody else's life. We shout at what God is about to do for me, but we sit quiet when somebody asks us to do something for someone else. We will show up when the pastor says we're giving away money. But when he asks for money so that we can bless somebody in the neighborhood, y'all not gonna say amen today. It's gonna be a tough one today, I feel it. We are great at investing time when we can see the benefit for our lives. But when we say let's register for a week-long series of missions for the community, we don't have the time. Because we are awesome consumers. But sometimes we can be mediocre contributors. We come week after week and we want our kids to be blessed by the ministry of someone who's dedicated in their time to being with them and showing up to their games and supporting them in this thing called life so they don't feel alone. But do we contribute to that person's ability to be present and on staff and make the time that is available so that your child can get the best type of pastoring possible? We love to come to the church and say, hey, when I'm in need, see my need, pray for my need, create a miracle for my need. But what if God wanted you to be the miracle for somebody else? And he wants you to transfer your mentality from not just being a consumer today, but also being a contributor to the work that he's trying to do. I know that that's a tough sell today because so many of us in the consumer market, particularly in a season where we're all consumers. It is a difficult mentality to break away from, to say, maybe the Lord is looking more from me than he's trying to do for me. Oh boy, it's going to be quiet today. Maybe the Lord, Shayna, is going to ask more of me in this season than he's going to do for me in this season. You know, I grew up in a very diverse family. But many people might not know this, but my grandfather was a white man from Tennessee. My mother didn't know her real father till she was in her 20s because he was a Vietnam vet and came back with PTSD, and they just they had a fragile relationship, and my grandmother and him had separated, and they were never married, but they separated. So this white man from Tennessee married my black grandmother in the 60s with 3 black children, my mother of which was the eldest, and my grandpa Milburn Turner was my hero. When my parents separated and divorced several times, I lived with him. Matter of fact, he took me and my wife on our first date. I pulled up to her friend's house. She got in the truck. It was a pickup truck, and she heard country music, and she was sitting in between me and my white grandpa. Y'all ain't gonna say nothing. She was confused. But that was my grandpa. I didn't know that was awkward until I got to college and realized that everybody didn't have a white grandpa that they lived with at the house. And so my grandfather and my grandmother had 2 kids together as well. So I had 2 mixed aunts and uncles. And then one of my mixed uncles married a woman from Puerto Rico. And then my other uncle, who was in the Marines, married a woman from Sierra Leone, West Africa, and immigrated her to the States. I'm just trying to help you understand Thanksgiving was confusing. A lot of rice, a lot of stuff we couldn't pronounce. A lot of chicken. It was like, a lot going on. But we found a common denominator. My grandfather, being from Tennessee, loved crabbing and fishing. But he loved fishing, and fish became a common denominator in my family. We love fish. I mean, we love fish. Like, fish was something that we all enjoyed eating. So much so that even still to this day, like, I'm a big, huge fish fan. Like, I don't know if anybody likes Mama J's fried fish. Anybody? I got a Mama J's fan. What about Crocus Pot? Do I got any Crocus Pot fans in the building? Okay. Any Red Lobster fans in the building? Come on here. Won't you do it? Bonefish? Come on here. You gotta, all right, I had to go progressively up to the more sedity people. Somebody was like, bonefish? That is an anniversary. It's not regular. Interesting. It's interesting, right? It's interesting. Fish was a common denominator. And I can think of some very epic fish dinner stories in my life. But when I look at this passage, I see the most epic fish dinner story ever. Jesus was an expert fish dinner maker. Jesus, we know the story, feeds 5,000 people. Now, you got to be a special type of fry daddy worker. Feed 5,000 people with 2 pieces of fish. It really, actually, we tell the story wrong most of the time because really it said it was 5,000 men. And many theologians have concluded that in this particular day and time that they counted family units only by men in the crowd. So what many people believe is that really it was more like 20,000 people this day that Jesus fed with 2 fish 5 loaves of bread. It also tells us that he was teaching. And what many people also have concluded is that this is probably the largest crowd that Jesus has ever preached in front of. Largest crowd. Now, how do we get generosity? And it's very interesting to me. I think a lot of times if we look at just the miracle of what Jesus did, we miss the bigger storyline. The disciples have just come back to Jesus. And although they are excited because chronologically, if you read Mark chapter 6 a little earlier, Jesus had just sent out his disciples and sent them out 2 by 2, and it says he gave them authority over impure spirits, over diseases, over sickness. He gave them authority. One word says apostles. He sent them out with power. And so these disciples now made apostles are sent out with the ability to do some of the stuff that Jesus did, to heal people, to perform miracles, to change lives, to transform experiences. And they go out and they've just gotten back to Jesus and they are excited, Tiffany, to tell Jesus all that they have done. Jesus, we've been working in ministry, we've been serving, we just did the gift of hope week, we helped a whole bunch of people, we're really excited. Jesus, we just want to tell you all about it. But they're also tired because they've been doing this ministry thing. And so Jesus says, let's go to a remote place. Let's go to a quiet place so that we can rest. Somebody say rest. Now, I think it's important that we pause here and understand the first thing we often miss in this text is this idea of why Jesus includes them in this miracle. Why did Jesus include them in this miracle? Because I'm going to give you 3 points today, and I'm going to integrate them throughout the sermon. The first thing I want you to see is that Jesus invites your participation. First thing I want you to see in this text today is Jesus invites your participation in the miracle moment. Here it is. They come back. They say, hey, you've been serving. Let's go to a remote place. Be quiet, chill. Jesus sees the people show up. Now, note you, they went here to rest. And they went here to eat because they were hungry too. People show up. And Jesus says, got a great idea. Let's do another church service. And Jesus starts teaching. And Jesus starts preaching. And it must have been the best sermon of his life because it says he was preaching so long that it got late, Keith. And the disciples huddled up and was like, look, we came here because we were tired. It's my theological imagination. We were hungry. Let's tell Jesus it's time to give the benediction. Anybody ever been in a church service that was too long and you didn't know how to get out? A few people grew up Baptist, you did this. They huddled up. They said, hey, look, Jesus is still preaching. He must have forgot that we came here because we were hungry and we were tired. And he told us that we were coming here to rest, but this doesn't feel like rest. How about this? Let's tell them it's getting late. We should send the people away. Go get something to eat. So they sent a representative. Hey, Jesus. Jesus. You're doing a great job, by the way. Best preacher we know. History. Look, right before, we were thinking, it might be a good time to let the people go. You know, great sermon. They'll come back tomorrow for part 2. Let's give the benediction. Jesus responds, you feed them. Jesus, we came here to rest too. We didn't come here to work and do ministry. No, you feed them. How much do you have? Let me go check. And I think right there we see something that we often miss when we look at this text. Is that while Jesus has the power to do the miracle by himself, he invites their participation. And I think the reason we often miss this part is because we don't read earlier on in the chapter, but Jesus is just giving them authority and power to walk in the same authority that he had and to go into people's lives and transform their experience. Okay, I want you to catch this today because so often the reason we don't live as powerful lives as God has intended us to is because we are good at complaining but not good at accessing the power that God has already given us. Okay, I want you to see this, and you will never live the type of life that God has for you until you learn how to create what you complain about. You will never live to the fullness of the life that God has for you until you learn that there's some things that you've been complaining about, there's some things that you've been crying about, there's some things you've been discouraged about, but God said you already have the power to create what you're calling on me for. If you would ever learn to access your power, you would live a more powerful life. So Jesus sometimes won't do the miracle for you. He will invite your participation. Jesus says, I want you to participate in this moment, because if I do it, you'll start to marginalize the power I just gave you. So he invites their participation. And it's interesting in this text, because if we be honest, a lot of times when we read this passage, we love to insert ourselves into the text as those being fed, not those doing the feeding. Oh, this passage really preaches when we're talking about Jesus can take a little and make a lot in your life. But does it have the same effect when we say Jesus wants to do a lot through your life? Jesus says, I'm inviting your participation because I need you to understand that you are not the victim of the text. You are not the one always that needs to be fed. Sometimes you're the one who needs to do the feeding. So Jesus invites their participation into this miracle moment. It says to them, I need you to join me in feeding the people. But here's the second thing. Here's the second thing I see. Jesus navigates their perspective. Jesus navigates their perspective. Let's pick back up the storyline. Jesus says, you feed them. Y'all back? Then he tells them, go and see how much you have. Okay, Jesus. Goes back to the disciples. Says, hey, he said, what did he say? He's going to end service, right? He said, no. He told us to feed them. And the other disciples was like, what did you say to him? I don't know. He just said, go feed them. Now, if you know all the parallel passages, anybody remember that in this story, this is a synoptic gospel, that the fish that they got and the loaves of bread were little boys. Now, I got to imagine, if anybody stole a little boy's food, it had to be Peter. You know, Peter was the gangster disciple. Did y'all know that?